and Maggie writing up to-do lists. See, this is what a good wartime leader does. She realizes it requires a team effort, patience, and strategy. But remember, this episode is called The Other Side, and I think it's titled that because it shows the duality of one side facing another opposing side. And in this opening montage, that other side is Sasha. All of these opening shots contrast what it means to be a true leader like Maggie with what it means to be a lone warrior like Sasha. Unlike Maggie, Sasha is shown to be alone throughout all of this, brooding as she prepares for war in her own way. And the conclusion of these images is that true leaders are rewarded with community and life, symbolized by Maggie looking at her ultrasound, whereas lone warriors only find loneliness and death, symbolized by Sasha stacking rocks on Abraham's grave. And during this montage, we get this moment with Maggie and Daryl. Notice how Daryl refuses to look at or talk to her. Now, we later learn why Daryl still feels guilt for Glenn's death, but it's cool how they're able to communicate this to us non-verbally. I also like that we see Maggie regaining her composure before she heads back inside, a true leader. We also see the opposite of a true leader, with Gregory suspiciously watching them from inside as Maggie and the other Hilltoppers clearly talk shit about him. Like, rather than doing anything to be part of this war effort, we only ever see Gregory cowering inside his office, getting drunk, and trying to spit game with the saviors. Okay, moving on after the credits to Maggie and Jesus. Now, Jesus reveals some of his backstory here, that he grew up in a group home, and one other little detail that's from the comics but not yet revealed on the show.
Always found it hard getting close to anyone. Neighbors, friends, boyfriends.
So yeah, this kind of recontextualizes who Jesus was looking at in the episode last season. And Jesus talks about how bringing Maggie and Sasha into the community has in turn made him feel more part of the community. And when Sasha hears this, she hangs back. Now, why does she do this? That's because, unlike Jesus and Maggie, Sasha does not want to feel part of the hilltop because she knows that she's about to leave it behind. And real quick, notice how Maggie suggests to Jesus that they need riot gear.
Thing is, what we really need is riot gear.
I think that's a little callback to Glenn. Maggie remembers that riot gear was the reason he was able to escape the prison in one piece. And then after Jesus catches Sasha taking his bullets, Sasha hands off this friendship bracelet that she made for Maggie's baby to Enid. And I like the parallelism between this handmade gift and the other one that we see this episode, the necklace made by Rosita initially for Abraham. And in both cases, these end up being kind of olive branch peace offerings between these women. Like, both items were initially intended for someone else, but Sasha and Rosita allowed these things to be carried on by Enid and Sasha as a sign of trust between the women. And then when Cal announces that the saviors are coming, Sasha and Rosita escape through this secret tunnel that Sasha dug, revealing that the exit strategy on Maggie's to-do list earlier was actually followed through on. But Sasha also mentions the title of this episode.
Goes to the other side.
Now, as I mentioned before, the other side doesn't just refer to the outside of the hilltop walls. It refers to the two sides of opposition meeting and working out their differences. And by escaping together on this mission, these two opposing forces, Sasha and Rosita, still angry with each other from the Abraham love triangle last season, will finally begin to understand the other side. Okay, moving on to this scene between Gregory and Simon. And by the way, Simon has been super fun to watch. Of all the actors to play surrogates for Negan, Stephen Ogg has been the closest we've seen to actually matching Jeffrey Dean Morgan's swagger as Negan. Kind of like that mix of, hey friend, just lighten up, I'm just joking, but also I'm taking your shit and I'll kill you if you try to stop me. And then notice this exchange between them.
You're a gin man, right?
Man of shifting specifics, taste and transition. I'm into tequila now.
Now, Gregory is referring to episode 5 when Simon took his scotch and mentioned that he was a gin man.
This is...
Scotch.
Well, not just...
Hate this stuff. Tastes like ashtrays and window cleaner. I'm a gin man.
And the fact that Gregory remembers this shows that he's trying to placate Simon with little personal details about him. Kind of like those old school networking notes people would write on Rolodexes. Which, by the way, is a thing that I only really know about from The Office.
Tall and beats.
Anyway, Simon now says that his tastes in liquor are constantly shifting. For Simon, this is a counter tactic. He doesn't want details about him to be on anyone's Rolodex. Like Negan, he prides himself in being unpredictable and kind of a mystery. That is how he inspires fear and exerts his authority. We actually saw the Joker use a similar technique in The Dark Knight, remember, revising his backstory throughout the movie.
My father was a drinker. He's
sticks the blade in my mouth. Let's put a smile on that face. So I had a wife who gambles. One day they carve her face. I stick a razor in my mouth and do this.
Okay, moving on to Rosita and Sasha trying to hotwire this car. And Rosita seeing Sasha wearing that necklace that she made for Abraham. And at this point, things are still very tense and bitter between these two. Like, notice how the camera is literally placed between the actors in these tight close-ups where they look directly into the camera. It's kind of awkward to have actors look directly into the lens. It's not common on the show, but they do it here to bring the viewer into this awkward tension between the characters. And after this moment, Sasha and Rosita don't really make eye contact again until the characters make peace later on. Also, notice Rosita's line here.
I thought this was the one, but
And then she sees the necklace and remembers Abraham.
car's dead.
I think Rosita is implying some double meaning here. She thought Abraham was the one too, and now he's dead. Rosita with the wordplay. Then we get another rare shot for The Walking Dead. One long, unbroken take, running a total of 1 minute and 10 seconds, including this rather complicated move of Rosita and Sasha taking down walkers at the same time. So why did they shoot it this way? I think they wanted naturalism here, allowing the actors to deliver this bitter argument in raw, real time, and then organically build to them working together to clear an obstacle. These two have come a long way from rivals to friends, and this transitional shot is one of the key steps of that transition. Also, notice the exchange between them over whether to shoot Negan from afar or infiltrate the community and get him up close.
If we shoot from a distance and miss, we don't get another chance.
I won't miss.
Even if you shoot and graze him and he doesn't die.
I won't miss.
Now, I'm not sure if Sasha realizes the shade she's throwing at Rosita right here, but I won't miss reminds us of episode 8, when Rosita had Negan right in her sights, point blank range, and missed hitting Lucille instead, which is why Rosita is so determined to go in close this time so that they won't blow their second shot at this too. Now, back at the hilltop, Enid tries to stall this savior named Roy from going into the basement where Maggie and Daryl are hiding. So why is Roy such a grammar Nazi?
I've got fresh veggies.
Stop. They're vegetables. Use the whole word. We have time.
So the shortened word veggies isn't even bad grammar. But I think the point of this, other than to imply his possible backstory of being the most annoying English teacher, or just one of those weird internet trolls in the comment section who make big deals out of nothing, really this moment is saying you can't rush this guy. He's thorough. So that sets up the tension when he takes his time in the basement later on. Also, why doesn't Enid have to hide from the saviors like the rest of her people? So unlike Maggie, Daryl, Sasha, and Rosita, Enid wasn't present for the big Negan lineup. And I don't think the saviors ever saw or noticed her in Alexandria. So in a way, she's invisible to them, able to hide in plain sight. And then, small detail here, the produce in the basket is cucumbers and cantaloupes, it looks like, which aren't veggies or vegetables. But these are both significant foods from the past. Hilltop cucumbers were the same ones that were used to make the pickles that Eugene ate at the sanctuary when he seemingly switched sides. And cantaloupes from the kingdom led to Benjamin's death last episode. And yeah, I feel like there could be a connection here. Like maybe Enid will help avenge Benjamin the cantaloupe's death by killing Eugene the cucumber pickle. And I am not at all a crazy person just reading into things. This produce metaphor theory is 100% going to happen. Okay, moving on to Simon and Dr. Harlan Carson, proving the theory from episode 11 that the other Dr. Carson that Negan referenced after he killed Dr. Emmett Carson was this guy, his brother Harlan at the hilltop. And when Harlan realizes his brother has died, his reaction is interesting.
My brother pissed someone off, get himself killed.
This kind of implies that Harlan and his brother might not have been on good terms. Like, at one point, the two doctor brothers parted ways. Like how in real life, some doctors choose to be pediatricians in small farming communities, while other doctors cash in with cushy jobs in psycho-fascist cults. Classic scenario, really. Also, Simon reveals what is in that crate that the saviors have been lugging around. Tons and tons of aspirin. Now, this is insulting on more than one level. For one, a bunch of painkillers obviously aren't a fair trade for an actual doctor. Like, I don't think those aspirin tablets are gonna deliver Maggie's baby. But it's also kind of insulting for Dr. Carson. Like, you think this is what I'm worth? What do you think doctors do? Okay, moving on to Daryl and Maggie in the basement. Now, like Rosita and Sasha, there has been this awkward tension between these two all episode as they've avoided eye contact. But instead of Abraham being the elephant in the room, it's the other martyr, Glenn. Daryl feels guilty for Glenn's death, with his swing at Negan in episode 1 leading to Negan taking it out on Glenn. And this absolution is meant to parallel the one that we see between Rosita and Sasha later on. But again, we see that contrast between true leaders and lone warriors. Maggie ends up telling Daryl that she wanted to kill that savior as well, but she held off because she knows winning the overall war requires patience. Meanwhile, Sasha's union results in a desire to act out recklessly. And then outside, notice how Gregory glances around nervously as the Hilltoppers glare at him for giving up Dr. Carson. It looks like he's afraid of being literally stabbed in the back, Julius Caesar style. And now that we know that he has directions to the sanctuary, I feel like this fear of losing power will drive him to throw a wrench into all of this. And when the truck pulls away with Carson, the exhaust blows right over him. Like, way to give your only doctor respiratory issues. I also feel like this kind of parallels the fate of his brother, who was thrown into fire and smoke by the saviors. So after Rosita and Sasha learn the value of teamwork via Grand Theft Auto, these two finally settle their differences as they wait to get a clear shot at Negan. Rosita reveals more of her backstory, that she learned how to hotwire cars and defuse bombs and tie knots from 3 guys that she dated who were all apparently brothers. Like, these guys were all the sons of Sarah Connor. But Rosita assures Sasha that Abraham was different because rather than seeing her as this helpless baby bird that he needed to protect, he valued her as a real partner. Also, let's talk about Rosita showing Sasha how to tie this knot.
Will you teach me those knots? I know a bunch, but not those.
Won't matter soon.
It might.
So on one level, this teaching moment reflects Rosita and Sasha tying the knot in a sense, finding a common ground and forming a union. And this knot kind of connects to Sasha's friendship bracelet from earlier, which, if you remember, was left untied and incomplete. Now Rosita is teaching her how to tie a knot to complete it. But also, Sasha hinting that this knot could come in handy kind of feels like it could be foreshadowing something to come. Like, I bet there's a good chance we're gonna see Sasha tie a knot to get out of a jam in the sanctuary, or maybe tie a noose for herself if she gets taken captive. I don't know, we'll see. This scene also gives us more insight into the Eugene mystery. Like, has this guy really crossed over to this other side of the Saviors? Now, I have a few thoughts on that, but first, quick shout out to our friends at Audible. Now, I know I go super in-depth into these Walking Dead breakdowns, and a big reason why I'm able to do that is by listening to Walking Dead audiobooks through Audible. Audible offers a wide selection of audiobooks and podcasts, and you can get a free audiobook with a 30-day trial at audible.com/newrockstars. One audiobook that I really liked was Robert Kirkman's The Walking Dead Invasion, written by Jay Bonansinga and narrated by Fred Berman, who also narrated Search and Destroy, which I've recommended in the past. I use Audible all the time, driving, walking around, doing the dishes while I'm in the shower, which is kind of becoming an issue because when it's a good chapter, I get all pruned, but it's so worth it. So, like me, you can turn your shower into something more in a non-gross way with a free trial at Audible. Just go to audible.com/newrockstars to start now. Okay, back to Eugene. So notice how they see him ordering Walker fortifications with Grimbly Gunk the monkey in his pocket, and then later they hear his radio commands in which he confirms his loyalty to Negan in the
Years just flown by, yeah? And now here we are.
Hi guys, I'm Eric Vaughn. You can turn your shower closely at this shot. It'll maximize his chances for surviving season 3 at the prison. And I think this fan chief engineer, a top-ranking savior. And if he was truly loyal to Negan, I don't think he would sound this desperate to prove his loyalty again and again. I don't know, it's just my 2 cents. I'll come back to Eugene, but first we get this scene between Jesus and Gregory. Now, Gregory tries to divide and conquer his threats to his power by giving Maggie job assignments and ordering that she can't live with Jesus anymore. And then notice what he says to Cal about the tequila.
Crack that open for me, would you?
That is the same phrasing that Simon used earlier.
Well,
crack open some tequila.
And I think this fanboy crush that Gregory has on Simon will come back as a problem for Maggie in the near future. And then moving on to this final scene at the sanctuary, Eugene discusses security with this other savior, who then gets taken down in this out-of-nowhere headshot, which seems like a callback to Axel's death in season 3 at the prison. And then we come back to this question: if Eugene is working against Negan, why wouldn't he escape with Rosita and Sasha when given the chance? But if you think about it, this actually kind of makes sense for Eugene. Like, he can see that their plan is not that well thought out. It's just the two of them. No Rick, no Maggie, no backup. It's literally a suicide mission. In fact, it's a lot like the suicide mission proposed to Eugene by the other two women in the sanctuary in episode 11, which he also refused to take part in. So I feel like once again, Eugene is sticking to his own long game because he has the most confidence that, unlike everyone else, he's actually put a ton of thought into his plan, and it'll maximize his chances for survival. Now, I could be totally wrong, and Eugene will sorely disappoint all of us. I think a good sign of that will be if he ends up snitching on Rosita and Sasha. We'll see. And then when Sasha tricks Rosita and runs off into the sanctuary alone, it's less of an act of betrayal than it is an act of love. Like, now that Sasha truly understands who Rosita is and what she can do, Sasha knows that Rosita's diverse skill sets are more useful to their people, whereas Sasha has always been better on her own as a killer. And the closing images of the episode leave us with this mystery. Who is this shadowy figure approaching Rosita? Well, obviously it looks like the figure has a crossbow strapped to his back, making me think that this is Dwight. Like, we've all been waiting for Dwight to turn on Negan, and helping Rosita could be a good way to finally do that. But let's look more closely at this shot and adjust the brightness and the contrast. Actually, that looks pretty clearly like Daryl. Remember, Daryl did get a new crossbow from the Kingdom, and he was wearing it earlier when he realized Rosita and Sasha were missing. Also, Daryl does know how to get to the sanctuary. So I feel like this cliffhanger was designed as a fake out to look like Dwight, when really it's Daryl come to get Rosita out of there. Now, will they be able to save Sasha too, or will her tortured soul cross over to the other side? Okay, looking ahead to next episode, episode 15, titled Something They Need. The sneak peek scene shows Maggie actually saying these words to Gregory.
They're looking for something they need.
Something they need being the revenge that Rosita and Sasha are seeking. And the fact that Gregory implies that all of her friends are missing is even more evidence that, yeah, it was Daryl in that final shot. And in a promo for the last 2 episodes of the season, we see that Gregory is holding a knife behind his back in this scene. So even though it seems like he's trying to make peace with Maggie, I really think his ultimate strategy is way more evil. Also, I'm not sure if it'll be next episode or the season finale, but the promo also shows a return to Oceanside and an explosion there, making me think that Rick will get the guns that he needs, but he may have to take them by force. Also, it looks like Aaron's boyfriend named Eric will be joining them. And considering this guy never goes on missions, I feel like this doesn't bode well for him one bit. And some lingering questions. 1, was Sasha right to think that she, not Rosita, was more expendable? Like, to be honest, if I had to choose between them, Rosita's constant anger at everything with a pulse is way more exhausting. But I understand why Sasha made this decision. I mean, hey, someone's got to make Alexandria's necklaces, right? And 2, do you think there's been enough Negan this season of The Walking Dead? Like, Jeffery Morgan is such a huge presence on this show, and I feel like that larger-than-life persona has been kind of limited on this season. Now, I understand that Jeffery Morgan probably gets paid a lot per episode, but it's just kind of annoying to go through these long stretches where Negan only shows up over the radio or through a sniper scope. And as much as I love Simon's character, it seems like he was just brought in so that they wouldn't have to use Negan as much. I don't know, maybe I'm just being nitpicky, but let me know what you think in the comments. And be sure to check out all my other breakdowns of season 7 episodes. Thanks for watching, and if you like this video, please hit like and subscribe to New Rockstars. Also, please share this video, and if you really like New Rockstars, you can contribute to us on Patreon. Thank you so much to all of our current patrons. You guys are awesome. You can hit me up on Twitter at EAVoss with any thoughts you have on The Walking Dead, or follow New Rockstars on Twitter at New Rockstars for updates on our videos. All right, thanks for watching. Bye.
Hey guys, so I just got home from watching the Lego Batman, and oh man, I experienced it all. I laughed, I almost cried, specifically at the beginning with the Joker part where he looked real sad and they animated his eyes really sad, and then also at the end with the family stuff and when he's so mean to Alfred. I mostly couldn't get over just how much they nailed who Batman is. I mean, sure, yes, Batman is not a Lego as far as I know, and he's not really like addicted to outfits, so Okay, but he definitely doesn't beatbox and rap as he's fighting crime. But everything else that they did, that is who this guy really is. Now, I mostly mean psychologically, but also in his relationships, like socially, and in his solitary existence. This is the most realistic take on Batman we've ever had. Seriously. So, okay, I will dive into that a lot in just a minute, but let me just get this out of the way real quick. For those of you wondering whether or not you should see this movie, of course, yes, 10,000 times, yes. I'm not gonna spoil anything major in this video, but basically, if you like the Lego movie, then you're gonna like this. If you like Batman and you can laugh a little bit at how
Hey. I love you.
I love you.
Are you alright?
Yeah.
Alright.
You may not believe what I'm about to show you, but it's gonna change everything.
Wait, what are you saying?
Life as you know it is over. That was her?
It's okay, babe.
I guarantee you, at some point you'll say, this is it. This is how I end.
If we do this, we do it my way.
Not
Hello, Moto. It's time to reimagine the smartphone. Snap on a speaker, a projector, a camera that actually zooms. Get excited, world. The Moto Z with Moto Mods. Get a Moto Z Play Droid for only $10 a month. No trade-in required.
In Logan, our titular hero has lost a step or two. He's grizzled, he's hardened, and at 140 years old, he now faces his most formidable challenge yet. Figuring out a smartphone. Seriously, this guy fought in World War I. You know that every selfie he's taken has his thumb in it and that he sent Cyclops like 3,000 notifications from Farmville. Internet, welcome to Film Theory, the show that mixes science with superheroes and only gets better with age. You know what else only gets better with age? Wolverine, apparently, because Logan is great. It wasn't just a good superhero movie, it was a good movie that features superheroes. You should absolutely go see it, both for that reason and because this episode is chock full of minor spoilers. You've been warned, enter at your own risk. Alright, so now let's talk about what really struck me about Logan. He's older, he's weaker, and his healing factor is both slower and less powerful than it's historically been. The explanation that Logan gives us in the movie is that his adamantium skeleton is poisoning him. And though I really like the movie, something about that explanation for his sudden old manification didn't just add up for me. I mean, why now? Why wouldn't the all-powerful Wolverine have seen any side effects from his adamantium skeleton for decades, only to just now find that it's so deadly? So I rolled up my sleeves, did some research, and most importantly, asked my partner Stephanie, who has a background in medical science, to explain all the big science-y words to me, and I've come to a conclusion. Simply put, Logan is wrong. I mean, yes, he's getting older and his body is breaking down, but it's not because of the adamantium, and we can prove it with science. First, it's important to set a few things straight for those of you who aren't rabid MCU aficionados or who just always liked Charles better, thought that Logan was a bit too mainstream. I mean, seriously, every X-Men movie just like shoehorns him in somehow, even though it makes no sense. I'm looking at you, X-Men Apocalypse. It's important to distinguish Logan's mutation from Logan's fancy adamantium implants. Mutants have a lot of superpowers that morph parts of their body, but Logan's genetic mutations only involve some of what you've seen on screen. Genetically, his actual X-Men powers are his feral senses, his ultra healing abilities and 6 bone claws that are found in his hands. The adamantium that he's so famous for and that's supposedly poisoning him in this movie is just an add-on that he received in a lab back in the 1970s, an event that we see in his traumatic backstory in other films. That's important to remember because with Logan, we're dealing both with natural DNA mutations and man-made modifications that make a heart transplant look like a walk in the park. And you could see why he'd think the adamantium is his problem, right? I mean, it would kill most people, and he probably went on to WebMD and was like, adamantium poisoning. Yeah, that's gotta be it, bub. By the way, have you ever been to WebMD and tried to diagnose your own stomachache or something? No one comes out of there with some simple solution like, hey, that corn dog made me gassy. No, you come out of there diagnosing yourself with parasitic worms and stomach cancer and irritable bowel syndrome. No? Just me? Is that just me? Yeah? Fine. And since Logan is so sure that he has adamantium poisoning, in the movie, he won't even let a doctor diagnose him. So let's at least see if that's plausible scientifically. The short answer there is surprisingly yes. Many studies have shown that in regular human anatomy, metal implants can cause big problems for people, especially over time as people start to get older. Hip implants, cranial plates in people's heads, even your dental implants become slowly corroded over time, even though we don't think of this usual stuff in our bodies as being particularly reactive. At a molecular level, our own body's water and oxygen slowly oxidize the surface of the metal. And if you've ever looked at a bike left out in the rain or the Statue of Liberty, you know that metal doesn't like water plus oxygen because it leads to stuff like rust. Now imagine that in your body, where those oxidized metal molecules break off and do all kinds of weird stuff, like keep your bones from absorbing calcium or mess up the electrical currents in your heart. Even though modern medicine makes implants as stable as possible, there's metal corrosion across every type of metal: stainless steel, cobalt, even titanium implants. So it's definitely possible that adamantium could have the same effects, especially in someone who's had implants as long as Logan and who has had an entire skeleton's worth of the stuff. I mean, seriously, he is putting Grandpa's knee replacement to shame. So then it's adamantium poisoning, right? What are we even doing here? Because adamantium poisoning isn't even close to the whole story. First of all, we would have no explanation for the timing of Logan's decay. Why now, after 100+ years? If adamantium had been slowly poisoning him over time, you would think that you'd see something about it somewhere in the movies before this, even if there is a gap in the timeline between this one and the last one. But I already hear you making a very plausible argument. No, we wouldn't have seen adamantium poisoning before this because of Logan's healing factor. Logan's healing factor would have covered it up and we would have never known. And you know what? Your argument is totally right. Up to this movie, Logan's healing factor would have been powering full blast to make sure that any negative effects of metal poisoning would heal immediately. That's the reason why Logan is the only character to have an adamantium skeleton. Other test subjects died, but the healing factor kept Logan alive. But in this movie, that's no longer happening. We're seeing everything hurting Logan, from gunshots to broken glass to even the adamantium in his own body. But that means it's not the adamantium poisoning that's killing him, it's the loss of his healing factor. His genetically given superpower is going away and just uncovering all the other problems that he's had the whole time. And this is where Logan is wrong about what's killing him. So Logan's healing power is gone. But how does a member of the X-Men lose their abilities? It's genetic. It is literally in every single cell of their body. Most of them can't even choose to turn it off if they want to, like Rogue and Cyclops. Well, if we want to understand why Logan's healing factor is no longer fully functional, we first need to understand how your own genes can change over time. It's easy to think that you have the same genes from the day you're born.
When I open up my eyes, inspiration all around, I feel so alive, and I know it in my heart, something magical is about to start. Oh, just look around.
Good morning. It is now Tuesday.